Musashi Industrial and Space Flight Concern, MISC. Now we're starting off with the Starfarer. Now when you hear me talk about a lot of ships in Star Citizen, you'll have heard this over the previous days, and you'll hear this into the future, is the potential of this ship, the potential of this ship, the potential of this mechanic, on broader videos. The Starfarer, unfortunately, is not one of those ships. The Starfarer is a cargo / refueling ship, though mainly now it seems that it's going to be more of a cargo ship. All these fuel pods on the outside are going to be replaced with cargo pods at some point in the future, and it's mostly just going to be not even as good of a cargo hauler as, say, a Caterpillar. And that really comes down to the fact that the refueling aspect of the game has changed. Whereas before, quantum fuel was something that this ship could, slide into the atmosphere of a gas giant, harvest, and basically refine on its own, and then supply to players, which was perfectly acceptable to the community, and everyone was down with the idea, and Starfarers were selling quite well because people were happy to engage in that, and it was an obvious market, it was a built-in market, and so that sold a lot of Starfarers. Well, that is not the case anymore. Now quantum fuel is some magical rock that you mine, and the Starfarer no longer harvests it or refines it, and that has, I think, really kind of diminished the value of the Starfarer in a big way. Realistically, the Starfarer has a host of issues with it. The interior is built like an FPS level and not like a spaceship, and this to a certain degree, it still continues to be something of an issue in Star Citizen's designs. But the Starfarer was the most pronounced and the most egregious offender in that area, and the rationale behind not fixing it is, well, we already just redid it and it's done. We don't want to have to do it again, and unfortunately it doesn't seem like it's going to get a rework. So the Starfarer was once a ship that held a lot of promise, but now, it's kind of problematic because you're kind of stepping into a world. Well, are you just refueling the hydrogen fuel now for players? Is that why everybody's ship regenerates hydrogen fuel so slowly? And you may or may not be aware of the fact that ships are naturally supposed to regenerate their hydrogen. Most of them are, the ones with big intakes on them. So they're supposed to take care of that on their own, drawing it from atmospheres or from the interplanetary or interstellar medium as they're traveling through space. The molecular hydrogen that's floating around, depending on your environment, it recharges faster or slower. That was always a perfectly acceptable mechanic. Everyone understood it, and now that seems to have been changed as well to reflect the changes to quantum fueling, which apparently have zero purpose, but it just seemed like a cool idea at the time. So the Starfarer, when you hear me talk about the potential of other ships, the Starfarer's potential truthfully has been, in the current iteration, in the current vision going forward, has been gutted. And let me just say that it's been gutted, and so the value of this ship is dubious, to say the least. Now, from potential zero to potential hero, the Freelancer MISC. Now, you might be saying this doesn't look like the Freelancer MISC I see on the website or on the sale page. That's because, when you're spending millions of dollars on a website trying to sell your game, who wants to really keep the images up to date? This is what the Freelancer MISC looks like now. This is the in-game version. And the Freelancer MISC and its other, models, the DUR, the Max, all of that, are actually excellent ships. And I'm going to full out admit that. I hate the way they look, personally, but they are excellent ships. They are excellent for carrying cargo. In the case of the MISC, which is the militia version, they are excellent for combat. They have great potential. The guns on it aren't all that impressive, but the missile payload is crazy on this ship. And that's what I think makes it a very, very solid ship. Frankly, an amazing ship. And its pricing is down there close to the Cutlass. So even on the base model, if you do like the way the ship looks, I mean, it's not a bad step. And a very fair argument could be made when you're talking about, should I get a Cutlass or should I get a Freelancer? A very fair argument could be made for both ships. This is actually a pretty damn good ship. Is it the greatest ship out there? No. But for you, for getting around, for having to move cargo, maybe do a little combat here and there, this is an excellent ship. And I have used it on multiple occasions, usually when the Cutlass is on cooldown. And I haven't really enjoyed it. It's been very tolerable. Let me put it that way. And so I really don't hesitate to use it when I have to use it. But apart from that, I would much rather have the ship that it's the loaner for, which is the Star Runner. But we'll get to that in a future episode. It is a good ship. The Freelancer is an excellent ship, and it is not money poorly spent. If this is your starter, if this is your baseline getting into Star Citizen, I don't think you're going to have a disappointing experience with this ship, apart from the cockpit view. The Prospector. Now, the Prospector, where the Starfarer has lost, the Prospector may have gained. Indeed, it could end up being the ship that mines this mysterious new quantum fuel that I guess we are going to be introduced to at some point in the future, though we know it's some kind of mineral now. So the Prospector may benefit from that. And as the first mining ship to be functional in the Star Citizen universe, remember the Orion was the first ship to be sold, but it has yet to be completed. It is being built currently as the giant class industrial miner. And of course, we do have the upcoming mining ship that we will get to in a moment. But the Prospector is the first to be functional. It is the entry level, the smallest of the mining ships. And by all reports, it is actually quite a satisfying ship to fly and play. It's an enjoyable ship. And I think that this reflects very well on MISC. It has a revolutionary all-glass, or mostly all-glass cockpit. Revolutionary for MISC, at least. It kind of corrects the issue with many of its predecessors from MISC, which is the horrible cockpit view. This has an enormous one. This one is great. This is a fantastic ship. If you're looking to get into mining and you're looking to do it on the more reasonable end of the price spectrum, this is a great ship. This is a fantastic ship. And, you know, I would struggle to go around and find like outright complaints that aren't based on currently broken mechanics or overarching like game issues, things that are wrong with the ship itself. I've never run into anyone who says, well, this ship sucks as a miner because XYZ. No, it's fine. It's fantastic. It's a good ship. The only problems it has right now are, once again, the game that it resides within. The Prospector is a great ship. The Hull series, here in this photo exemplified by the Hull C. Now you may wonder why the Hull C. Well, the Hull C is the most famous of the Hull series. There is the Hull A through the Hull E, E being biggest, A being tiniest. Now, the Hull C was a ship that gained a lot of fandom in the community as it was, becoming flight ready. You may not remember this, but back when the Reclaimer was entering into the game, as the Reclaimer was getting ready to be done, it was neck and neck with this ship, and we were seeing videos of the cargo arms animating the ship extending outwards and all the progress they were making, and then whoosh, it stopped. It was gone. The reason for that is that I guess at some point after countless hours of work had been put into the ship, someone at CIG realized there's nowhere to dock the ship that will allow it to transfer its cargo. And so, unfortunately, it had to be shelved. And apparently they're working on it again, but we've got new stations now. Maybe it will work then. It looks like it is going to be the cargo ship that is going to unseat the Caterpillar as the best cargo ship in the universe for large bulk carrying. Now you can see that with the cargo arms extended, it is going to be a problematic ship to land in certain areas, so it will obviously have some restrictions as to where it can go, much more so than the Caterpillar. So it is going to be a ship that is probably based more on volume and less on the individual value of the items that it carries. It is going to be the big bulk carrier, the Hull E, of course, being the biggest. And these are going to be, make no mistake, as far as cargo carrying in large bulk amounts, these are going to be the big daddies of the Star Citizen universe once they're finished and the game mechanics that can support them are finished as well. The Endeavor. The Endeavor is MISC's large-scale science and exploration / hospital / possible drug lab / space farm spaceship. It can be just about anything spaceship. Using something not too dissimilar from the Hull series and their cargo arms, this ship can fit multiple modules. And if you go on the website and look at it, you will see all the individual modules for sale. Or I suppose you can still buy the ship in different package configurations, whether it's farming, whether it's medical rescue. It comes in many different configurations, and the forward section of the hull is detachable so that this ship, the forward section can actually travel down to the surface of a planet, land, do whatever they got to do, come back up, dock with the rest of the ship, and then fly away again. Not unlike the Nostromo from the first Alien movie. Now, this might sound extremely appealing to you, and I agree. There's a lot of potential here. I mean, space, mobile space drug lab kind of makes me have warm feelings all over, but there is a problem. There is a big problem with the Endeavor, and the Endeavor, it was specifically said that the Endeavor would not be completed until after the game went live. The Endeavor, however, the ship pipeline shuffled, CIG pretty much put the Endeavor at the back of the bus. And there it has remained. Now, once again, we talk to the potential of spaceships, and there is potential here. What you can do with science in the Star Citizen universe has been defined in only the most broad terms. What you can do with the farming is probably a little bit more concrete and a little bit more material. What you can do with medical rescue and medical facilities or drug labs, probably a little bit more reasonable to speculate on. But one thing that is not reasonable to speculate on is the hangar module that comes with this ship, because it has created, not so much these days, but back in the day when, the pocket carrier mania was going on, and that's a whole story in and of itself. A lot of players were looking at the hangar that could be attached to the ship for the medical rescue, which could accommodate, we were told, a Cutlass Red or possibly a little bit more. There was a lot of community-driven fiction as to what you could do with this hangar, and it is important that as a backer of Star Citizen, you recognize the difference between community-driven fiction, the wants and the needs and the desires of the players versus the practical reality of what is going to get into the game. So you may hear people tell you, oh no, you can park this in it, you can park that in it, you can park the other thing in it as well, and it will carry them. No one knows. It is all bullshit. No one knows until it is built. And some people might say, well, of course it's going to be able to do this. Of course it's going to be able to do that. Yeah, and of course the Starfarer is going to refine quantum fuel. That was a promise too. So There's a lot of potential with this ship. It could be a very good ship, especially for people who want to do, you know, science and exploration, who want to fly around in a big ship, that sort of thing. There's a lot of cool shit there, but take it with a very big grain of salt, a very big pinch of salt. In fact, is that things may change, and it may be a long time before we find out just how much this ship will change. The Reliant. Now, the Reliant is a ship that I have to say, visually, I think is stunning. I think that it represents a very welcome departure from traditional Star Citizen spaceship design. It had a vertical kind of jiggering type hull that would lay down flat like a pancake when it was landing, and then it, you know, turns to what you're seeing now, which is vertical when it is flying. It is a gorgeous ship. It is a beautiful ship, and like the Prospector, or actually it probably served as the inspiration for the Prospector's cockpit since it came first, the all-glass cockpit, a very unique thing in a MISC ship. There's a lot of cool stuff here. However, in practice, in combat, not the greatest. And, you know, I've always kind of been someone who really liked the looks of this ship, but the truth is that, you know, I discussed this recently with another player, and, you know, they said, yeah, but in combat it's a free kill. And then I kind of thought back to it, and I went, oh yeah, I remember doing the Pirate Swarm with the Aurora, and whenever these things would turn up as the pirate fighters, they were basically just a free kill, because it presents so much surface area in a dogfight that it's almost impossible to miss. It's like shooting at a Starfarer. I mean, because of all that vertical space to land shots on, it literally just falls apart in combat. So, I mean, I guess maybe, what is it? Is it the Mako or the Tenna, which is the combat version? Whichever, whatever, it doesn't matter. Maybe there's some potential there, but truthfully, as a starter ship, you know, with a little bit of cargo space and all that, it's okay. But in combat, it's going to take a lot of damage. A lot of damage, because it just presents way too much surface area for what it is supposed to be. It's just too easy to hit. The MISC Razor. Now going from too big to very, very small. Possibly also, well, we can't use the word interdictor anymore for this ship. We're going to call it the Interceptor now, because once again, something has changed. The Razor, I think, you know, as a fight, let's not say a fighter, as a racer with some potential in the fighter department, it's very impressive looking. It's a very sleek, very sexy ship, and I think that once we get to a point where racing is a viable career and a viable pastime beyond being the neglected game mechanic that it is, with all these wings and all these fins on it in atmospheric racing, I think it's going to be fantastic for people who choose that career. I think there's a lot of potential here. It obviously has styling inspired by current Formula One racing cars. There's nothing really ever wrong with this ship, but being that you can't really call it a combat ship, it's never really appealed to me personally. But at the same time, you got to give credit where credit's due. As a racing ship, it might be fantastic once racing gets the kind of depth and development that it really needs. But once again, obviously that is not going to be something that is a priority for the Star Citizen universe. So to fully realize the potential of this ship could take quite some time. But as a means of conveyance and as something to just have fun with, and, you know, dodge asteroids in the rings of yellow with, and just have a good old time, probably a pretty damn good ship. Oh god, this video is going to take forever to render. We also have to do Argo and Crusader Industries. Jeez. Alright, quickly. The Argo MPUV and the Argo Cargo Transport. They carry things to larger ships from planetary surfaces like the Idris and the Javelin, things like that. As far as something that you may want to own, if you have a large ship, possibly a Kraken, something like that, and you need something that gets down to the surface of a planet, hauls back people or small amounts of cargo, yeah, that's what this thing does. The Argo SRV, or the Argo Stevie Ray Vaughan. Now, this is the Argo that can do search and recovery. It can tow ships through quantum. It's basically a tow truck in space. It can also carry cargo, pick up large pieces of cargo, and I guess load them onto a larger ship like a Hull D or a Hull E, potentially. Though exactly to what extent, we do not know. One thing that we do know is that this came part and parcel with the horrific changes to flight in an earlier version of Star Citizen, which basically became hover mode and became the current abomination of a flight model that we are currently living with. The problem with it is that the Star Citizen universe had been built along with the older reality of landing areas and landing zones and things like that. Unfortunately, the new model did not take any of this into account. It was a stupid idea, and it remains a fairly cumbersome model of flight. Some changes have been made, not enough in my opinion, and when this ship came out, when this ship was sold, also happened to mysteriously come in with the fact that larger ships were no longer going to be able to fly out of the atmosphere of planets on their own, and you would probably need some help to do that. And oh, by the way, we're selling you that help right now in the form of the Argo SRV. Now, there is some good potential here in terms of maybe scooping up a ship from space that's been abandoned, or maybe some large resource containers, and hauling them away someplace safe where you can pilfer them, that sort of thing. But overall, because it came in a package with this new flight model and this new change to larger, heavier ships and how they handle an atmosphere, to me, it is something of a tainted part of Star Citizen. It was kind of like, well, you know what we're going to do? We're going to cripple the bigger ships, and then we're going to sell the way to uncripple them. And so, unfortunately, there is some cool potential here. I'm not going to deny it. It is a nice design. It is a cool design. But to me, it is always kind of reeked of a cash grab. Now on to Crusader Industries, and we will start off with the Mercury Star Runner, the ship that should be the first Crusader Industries ship to be built in the Star Citizen universe, though that may not be the case. We'll get to that in a minute. This is essentially the Millennium Falcon of the Star Citizen universe. It is fast, it is a light cargo hauler, it can also do a little bit of espionage, that sort of data running type thing, something that another ship that we will get into on a later day is supposed to be able to do. But if you're thinking, well, that doesn't really look like the Millennium Falcon, it's too fancy, it's too nice. Well, think of the Millennium Falcon in the movie Solo before it had its little trip through the maw. This is what this is supposed to be. It's asymmetrical. Oh my god, CIG embracing asymmetrical ships. And there's another ship that we could think of where they could have embraced asymmetry. Strangely enough, it's also the ship that we're going to talk about data running with as well. But what do you get? You get a ship that's lightly armed but very, very quick, can haul cargo, can smuggle, can run data, those sorts of things. It's a little bit nefarious, it's a little bit on the shady side of the law, and it's a whole lot of love. It is a fantastic ship. It is a ship that holds a lot of potential, though unfortunately it may not end up being the first of the Crusader Industries ships to be manufactured and released in the game. Sadly. But the reason why is something that we talked about in a previous video when we were talking about the ballista. So let's look at what is currently probably going to be the first Crusader Industries ship to be flyable in the game. The Crusader Industries Hercules, Starlifter, or there's multiple models. There's a ground attack model. There is obviously the large freight model and the ground vehicle, semi-military vehicle transport. All of them can pretty much transport varying degrees of cargo, but at least should be able to carry the heaviest of the ground vehicles in Star Citizen, which is, of course, one of the problems that the Ballista ran into when the Ballista was released as flight, or more appropriately, drive ready. There was nothing to transport it in the universe. This is the only vehicle currently, or potentially right now, that can do that sort of thing, that can roll on and roll off. And so this represents something of a necessity for Star Citizen, something that they have to put into production. As a cargo ship, it should be a fantastic cargo ship. As a ground attack ship with giant Moab bombs that you can see there in the center, potentially devastating at ground facilities, and the ability to carry tanks and mobile AA, or I don't know, like an entire company of troops. There's a lot of great potential with a ship like this. There's a lot of amazing potential with a ship like this for the future of the Star Citizen universe, and even somewhat for the present, though I think it's going to have some trouble with a lot of landing areas. I think that it is a very, very strong starship. I do not own one personally, but the thought had tickled me more than once to get this. But ultimately, it may be something that I just look at and say, you know what, that's going to be a cool thing for a friend to have, but not something ultimately that I need. Though I have to say, even though I want to see the Star Runner first, I fully understand why this would be a priority, and I'm not going to be disappointed when it releases, one way or the other. And finally, thank God, but, well, not really, the Genesis Starliner. The Crusader Industries Genesis Starliner. They love those overcomplicated names. It is the passenger ship. If you go to areas like Lorville, or you go to areas like Area 18, you'll notice that the places where you land your ships are organized like an airport. But there are no passenger planes and there are no passengers currently. But in the future, this is supposed to change. And this is the ship that is supposed to transport these people. Now, when the ship originally sold, and you may hear this from some of your friends, like, oh no, they're going to make a military strike version of this, and they're going to make one that's a troop transport version of this. None of that is guaranteed, and I believe that at some point CIG even admitted, well, a lot of that stuff that we write about ships like this is, flavor text to spice up the brochure. It doesn't mean that, it's going to happen. Exactly. And this is the ship that, unfortunately, probably is the biggest victim of that. And it's kind of one of the reasons why I kind of hate this ship. Because there was all these promised versions when it was originally sold, and then it went into a development coma. And truth is that this is probably a ship that is not going to see the light of day for a really, really long time.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.